packing cubes worth it? The answer really depends on the amount of clothing you're carrying, the type of clothing you're carrying, the type of luggage you're using, and your personal preference. Some people really like packing cubes, other people find them to be useless. In this video, I'm going to outline the pros and cons of using packing cubes to help you decide whether or not they're worth it for you. I'll also talk a little bit about compression packing cubes versus standard packing cubes. I'll also talk about whether or not packing cubes actually save you space in your luggage. So let's get started. To start off, I'm going to go over some pros and cons of packing cubes. The main benefit of packing cubes is organization. That's actually their primary purpose. So you can organize by clothing type. I like to keep my socks and underwear in one cube, shirts in another cube, and pants and shorts in another cube. You can also organize by outfits. You could put shirt, pants, socks, and underwear in individual cubes and have a cube for every day. You can have different cubes for different people if you're sharing a suitcase. This way you don't have to dig through your luggage to find what you're looking for. If you memorize what's in each cube, you can almost immediately find any piece of clothing. Without packing cubes, sometimes things can get lost in your luggage, particularly smaller items of clothing. They can drift to the bottom and you have to dig around a little bit. These are the 3 packing cubes that I use. I have a long skinny one for socks and underwear, a medium-sized cube for t-shirts, and a larger cube for pants. Here's how my packing cubes look when they're opened. Another benefit of packing cubes is that they reduce wrinkles. If you pack your cubes completely full, your clothing stays folded or rolled exactly the way you put it in. It doesn't come undone and get bunched up or get creased or anything like that. It will come out pretty much wrinkle-free if you pack properly. So this reduces the amount of ironing you have to do. Your clothing just stays looking nicer. When you don't use packing cubes, your clothes can get bunched up in your luggage. They can come unfolded or undone, so you might have to iron a little more. Packing cubes can also save a little bit of space in your luggage. If you tightly roll your clothing and slightly overstuff your packing cubes to compress your clothing a little bit, you can reduce the volume of your clothing. This can save you a little bit of space. If you need to save even more space in your luggage, you can use compression packing cubes. These use a second zipper or sometimes straps to compress your clothing to further reduce its volume. They basically squeeze some air out of your clothing. I would say you could reduce the volume of your clothing by 20 to 30% with compression packing cubes and maybe like 5% with standard packing cubes. Another major benefit of using packing cubes is that your clothes stay cleaner. So over time, the inside of your suitcase or backpack can get contaminated with dust, crumbs from food, body odor from dirty clothing, moisture from the environment, and that can make your clothes dirty. Packing cubes create a barrier between your dirty luggage and your clean clothing. You can also use packing cubes to separate clean clothing from dirty clothing. Your packing cubes can provide some protection from oils and sweat and body odor from your dirty clothes. There are also packing cubes that are designed specifically for dirty clothes that are completely watertight. There are also packing cubes that have 2 sides, one side for clean clothes, one side for dirty clothes. As you go through your clean clothes, you move them over to the dirty side. That could be a good system for some travelers. Packing cubes can also protect your clothing from spills or leaks. So if something in your toiletries pack starts leaking, it won't get all over your clothing. Your packing cubes will provide some protection. Most packing cubes aren't completely waterproof, but they are water resistant. Packing and unpacking is also a little bit easier when you use packing cubes. When you arrive at your hotel, you can just remove your 3 to 5 cubes and place them in the drawers, and you're unpacked pretty much. If you want to unpack completely, you can just easily remove your clothing from the packing cubes and transfer them to the drawers. If you need to find one item, you can just remove a couple of cubes, get what you need, and then put them back in. When you don't use packing cubes, you have a bunch of individual items you have to move around, unpack, pack. So it saves a little bit of time packing and unpacking in my experience. I find that it streamlines the process a little bit. This really depends on how many clothes you're bringing. If you've got a lot of clothing, you can save a good amount of time by using packing cubes. Now I'm going to talk about some drawbacks of using packing cubes. First, packing cubes are fairly expensive, especially for what they are. They're just simple fabric bags. If you buy a packing cube from a major manufacturer like Eagle Creek or Sea to Summit, you could spend $20 to $30 on a single packing cube. A set of 3 or 4 could cost you up to $100. Oftentimes compression packing cubes are even a little more expensive. You can get cheaper models, so you don't have to spend a lot of money, but still it's extra money you've got to spend. It's an optional piece of gear, so if you're on a tight budget, you're better off just skipping packing cubes. These are just cheap packing cubes I got from Amazon. I think they were like $20 or $25 for the set. There were actually 4 in the set, but I just needed 3 of them. So I do recommend these. I've used these for an entire year of travel. I traveled straight for a whole year, and they've held up really well. Another drawback to using packing cubes is that they add weight to your luggage. When you use packing cubes, you're carrying around extra material. A set of 3 to 5 packing cubes could weigh half a pound. There are ultralight models that weigh maybe an ounce or 2 a piece. So if you carried a couple of those, your weight penalty would be minimal. There are cases where you probably don't want to carry around any extra weight. For example, maybe you are traveling on an airline with a strict weight allowance and you're cutting it close. Maybe you're just an ultralight traveler or a minimalist traveler and you don't want to pack anything that adds extra weight, then you're better off without packing cubes. Another drawback of using packing cubes is that they can be inefficient. So most packing cubes are rectangular in shape, and they're designed to fit into rectangular suitcases. But if you're using a piece of luggage with a different shape, like maybe a cylindrical backpack or a suitcase with a more rounded shape, then your packing cubes might not fit inside efficiently. You might have some wasted space around the edges. The solution to this is to just stuff items around in the empty space. Another option in some cases is to use packing cubes that are specifically designed for a piece of luggage. So some suitcase manufacturers and backpack manufacturers offer packing cubes that are specifically cut for their luggage, so there's no empty space. Another drawback of using packing cubes is that they can be kind of a hassle. They basically introduce another step into the packing and unpacking process. So every time you want to get something out of your luggage, you have to first remove the packing cube, then you have to unzip it, take out what you need, zip it back up, and replace it in your luggage. Same is true when you want to put something back. It's an extra step you have to deal with. Packing cubes are also unnecessary for some trips. For example, if you're just going for a day or two, you don't need packing cubes to organize a couple of shirts and a couple pairs of pants. Packing cubes are really made for organizing a lot of clothing. If you have like maybe a week's worth of clothes or more, then packing cubes make more sense. Also, packing cubes don't really make sense for minimalist travelers and ultralight travelers. They just introduce more weight, more bulk, more stuff to carry around. Now I want to talk a little bit more about whether or not packing cubes actually save space. So a common misconception of packing cubes is that they're designed to save space in your luggage, but that's not actually the case. The primary purpose of packing cubes is actually just to keep your luggage organized. Now, compression packing cubes are designed to save space in your luggage, and I'll talk about those next. Really, packing cubes don't save you space in your luggage. In fact, in some cases, they actually take up more space because their added material, that extra material, takes up space. A packing cube, if you were to compress it, would be maybe the size of a pair of socks or something. So that is extra space. And also, the shape can be inefficient, as I mentioned. At the same time, you can save some space with packing cubes if you pack properly. If you carefully roll or fold your clothing and pack it tightly in the packing cube so it's somewhat compressed, you can save a little bit of space. But in general, it's a wash. Your luggage will be more or less the same with and without packing cubes, volume-wise. If your only goal is to save space, you should skip packing cubes or go with compression packing cubes. Now I want to talk about compression packing cubes. So compression packing cubes are basically the same as regular packing cubes. The difference is they have some type of built-in mechanism to compress your clothing. This could either be a zipper or some kind of straps. The main benefit of compression packing cubes is that they save space in your luggage. This would allow you to use a smaller piece of luggage. Maybe you can pack everything into a carry-on when you use compression packing cubes, whereas you might not be able to fit everything if you didn't. This can save you some money in checked bag fees. Alternatively, you can use compression packing cubes to bring more clothes. Maybe you could fit 7 t-shirts instead of 5. That's really the only benefit of compression packing cubes. There are a number of drawbacks of compression packing cubes. First, they wrinkle your clothing. The compression creates creases that can be hard to get out. So when you use compression packing cubes, you will have to iron your clothes. Compression packing cubes can also damage certain types of clothing. Some fibers can break when they're compressed, so some fabrics just won't last as long. It can also reduce the loft in some types of clothing, so it doesn't provide as much insulation and it won't keep you quite as warm. For example, down jackets can be damaged if they're over compressed or if they're left in a compressed state for too long. They may not loft back up properly and they just won't keep you as warm. They'll also wear out a little sooner. The down can break down while it's compressed. It's also a little harder to pack and unpack when you use compression packing cubes. they add an extra step. There's an extra zipper to do. It also takes a little bit of muscle to compress your packing cubes. You'll have to either hold them down with your body weight while you zip a zipper, or sometimes you'll have to pull on a strap, and it just takes a little bit of muscle. So if you have to do that once for a trip, it's not that big a deal. But if you're constantly compressing and uncompressing your cubes every couple days, it becomes a job. So when should you use packing cubes? I would say packing cubes are worthwhile for longer trips when you're carrying a lot of clothing. They're also good for those trips where you're moving around a lot. If you're constantly packing and unpacking, they can help you stay organized. They're also good for trips where you're traveling from one climate zone to another. Maybe you have your cold weather clothing in one packing cube and you have your warm weather clothing in another. They can help you divide that up. They're also useful when you're sharing luggage with someone. You can use them to divide up your different clothing. If you're limited by space, you should also consider trying out packing cubes, particularly compression packing cubes. They can save a significant amount of space in your luggage and allow you to pack more or to use a smaller piece of luggage. So when shouldn't you use packing cubes? Really, packing cubes are unnecessary for shorter trips. If you're just traveling for 2-3 days and you're packing a couple shirts and a couple pairs of pants, you really don't need packing cubes to organize 6 items of clothing. Packing cubes are also unnecessary for large and bulky items. It doesn't make sense to put a sweatshirt in its own packing cube, for example. So to wrap things up, I would say packing cubes are worth it. It really depends on how long you're traveling, the type of clothing you're bringing, how many clothes you're bringing, and your personal preference. Personally, I use packing cubes. For the longest time, I thought they were a gimmick. I thought they were useless. But then I bought a pair just to try them out, and I actually ended up loving them. So I used them for the past year while traveling, and I'm going to continue using them. So for me, yeah, they're worth it. If you're still undecided about packing cubes, go ahead and check out my article. It's linked in the description. There I really go into more depth about the benefits and drawbacks of packing cubes. So what do you think? Do you use packing cubes? Share your experience in the comments and let me know. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and like and subscribe. And thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. These are all of the clothes I travel with. So I have a small packing cube with 4 pairs of socks and 4 pairs of underwear. I have a medium packing cube with 4 t-shirts and 1 long sleeve shirt. There's 5 shirts in there. I have a large packing cube with a pair of jeans, 2 pairs of shorts, a swimsuit, and a long sleeve collared travel shirt. Then I've got my travel pants. I usually wear these when I'm in transit. When I'm not, I'll put them in here and I'll wear one of the shorts or the jeans or something. I also have a down puffy jacket and a rain jacket and my sweatshirt. So I don't put these items in a packing cube just because, well, these have their own bags. I just stuff them in the bottom of my backpack. I don't use them that often, so they just kind of stay there. And I like having easy access to my sweatshirt. So I just stuff that in the top of my backpack and I can easily pull it out and wear it whenever. So that's all I pack. Now I'm going to show you how I pack my travel backpack. This is a 40-liter carry-on backpack from Osprey. So I start with my sandals. They go in the bottom like that. I'm trying to do this one-handed is a little different than I'm used to. Okay. Then I put my down puffy jacket, my rain jacket, big packing cube, medium packing cube, small packing cube. Okay, and I've got some room up here for toiletries, good amount of room. And then I just put my jacket on top, my sweatshirt on top, and close it up. And there's how it looks when it's all closed up. I also have a day pack I carry with my laptop and cameras and all my electronics and everything.